This is TJR'S Classic Rock Corner podcast with your host, the Classic Rock Brainiac, yours truly, Terrence. Sit back and listen to me gush over albums that I love that either had an impact on my life or rock and roll in general, and be rest assured that there's no country or rap nonsense to be found here. So welcome to another exciting episode of TJR'S Classic Rock Corner podcast. The king has returned. The boss is back. It's TJR, Terrence Joseph Reardon, here on TJR's Classic Rock Corner podcast with his first new episode in 4 long months. And you're all like, 4 long months? Where the hell did Terrence go? Why did he disappear? Well, I had a bunch of things come up in my personal life. Nothing bad, mind you, but caring for a 79 going on 80-year-old father hasn't been easy, but I don't mind. At least he's not the guy in the White House right now. But, my dad's 2 years younger than the guy, but my father has taken top priority over just about everything I've done. And also had some issues of my own, an injured ankle, which I twisted in my sleep, and a few other things, a wisdom tooth that wasn't fully extracted many years ago popped back out again. I had to get that sorted out. So there's a lot of things going on. That's why I haven't been doing episodes. But I'm not delaying around when future episodes will be coming, which more will be coming very soon. So it's not like I'm disappearing again, because this is the first of a series of new episodes I'm going to be airing. In today's episode, we'll be on an artist, I should say, from my favorite band of all time. And it's a brand new album. It's by former Pink Floyd singer, songwriter, guitarist David Gilmour, because the band is no more. The album is Luckin' Strange, which is David's first new album of all new material in 9 long years. And I will be talking about that album. But before I do that, I want to share one of the things that I've been doing in recent months, which, things got in the way. And one of the positives that did happen was I did get to see a band I've been meaning to see for a long time. And it's a band that's going to be the topic of the next episode, Metallica. As the band is now winding down their M72 tour, which is the tour in support of their most recent album, 72 Seasons. I went to the Metallica Takeover of Boston night number 2, which was the Sunday night gig. And I'll give you a quasi-spoiler of how the show was. I'm going to give you the full recap on the next episode, but I'll just say this as a little taster. The show was ass-kickingly great. I loved it. It's now probably tied as favorite concert I've ever been to in my life. And I've been to a lot of them. And this was my first concert with my buddy Dennis in 6 years. First time at Gillette Stadium in 9 years. And my first concert in general in 5 years. And I was like, well, I'd consider coming out of retirement for Metallica, which I did. And Metallica did not disappoint. And I'll have more to share about the Metallica review on the next episode. So that's what's been going on. Metallica touring, the tour winding down. AC/DC's Power Up tour has wound down as well. It's the first leg of their Power Up tour, and apparently they might do a North American leg next year. We'll keep you posted. Iron Maiden is touring right now, doing continuing the future whatever the future tour thing they're doing. And yeah, their tour, unfortunately they're playing a weeknight, so I can't go see them. If they had been playing, say, TD Garden or something, I'd go see it. But unfortunately they're playing in a city that I am not really too happy to go all the way to, which would be Worcester, which is basically a hellhole here in the Bay State. If they had played Providence, I would have considered, but unfortunately, the Providence Civic Center, whatever it's called now, doesn't book many real hard rock metal gigs now. I don't know why. They think maybe the metal audience is too rowdy? You be the judge. But, yours truly is finally coming back out of his shell, and one of the people I want to thank for helping me give me a renewed lease on doing these things is a YouTube channel called JCM Led Zeppelin Stories. And here's what I got to say about him. He is the man. He is the Led Zeppelin scholar. He's the master of Zeppelin. And he's 11 years younger than me, but he makes, I think, what I do look like an amateur hour by comparison, because this dude does his research, does his homework. I mean, I thought I knew a lot about Led Zeppelin. I guess he makes my knowledge of Led Zeppelin look like I'm like Beavis and Butthead when it comes to knowledge of Zeppelin. I mean, I love Zeppelin and all. They're one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time, but the dude is a genius. And if you want to go to a channel which has a lot of great Led Zeppelin tales, he's your man. And he's also done episodes on albums that were seen as the black sheep of the band's catalogs. Love Beach, Tormato, Calling All Stations. Do you think maybe a momentary lapse of reason will make that cut at some point? I hope so. And if he does need me for help for momentary lapse, I'm his man. So a lot's been going on. JCM Led Zeppelin Stories, plug for him. I'll have more to talk about him in a future episode, because he has now not 1, not 2, but count it, 60 copies of this album here, In Through the Outdoor by Led Zeppelin. Which, I will be redoing as an episode as a solo act. I mean, I did an episode with my old podcast back in the day, but listen to it now, I just didn't like the way it sounded back then. And I didn't have the research tools of the trade that I had now, nor the deluxe edition of that album. And now, I might not be able to be as good as JCM, but at least he's lit the fire in my ass to get back into doing this. So I have not only a Metallica episode in the can ready to go, but also 2 Led Zeppelin that I think I'll air back to back. The first album 1 week, In Through the Outdoor the next. So you heard it here, folks. Yours truly is back with a vengeance, and he's ready to kick ass and take names, Chuck Norris style. So without further ado, let's switch gears and talk about the brand spanking new album by Pink Floyd veteran David Gilmour, entitled Luck and Strange. This is his first new album of all new material in 9 years. His last album was in 2015, and the album called Rattle That Lock. No, not Rattle That Cock, like my former podcast colleagues, they know who they are, called it. They named it that as I was doing an episode with them on Queensryche's Empire, which luckily never aired because I showed up late for the recording because I slept late. And and it basically turned out that I could not work with Wadzilla ever again, because Wadzilla, I'm now convinced, is basically the devil. I shouldn't say that, but he's just a mean, nasty human being who just didn't like me. Such is life. But, I gotta be grateful that my career was launched because of that show. But they call anything without Roger Waters crap. Sheesh, I think it's because they're angst-ridden Beavis and Butthead wannabes. Anywho, back to the topic. David's last solo album was called Rattle That Lock, which came out in 2015, went top 5, his first album to do so here in the States, and it was a number 1 rock album on Billboard's rock album chart, which they had reinstated in recent years. So David had some success on his own, finally as a solo artist, and a top 5 album as a solo artist here in the United States, which is fine by me. And then he toured to support it, which was documented on the Live at Pompeii double live CD, quadruple live vinyl, Blu-ray of the shows he did in Pompeii, Italy at the Pompeii Amphitheater, which basically brought him back to where he performed in Pompeii with Pink Floyd 45 years before in 1971. And he did that. He released that live album, took it easy and laid low in 2018, was thinking about doing another album, but decided not to because he likes to spend his time with his wife and his kids and his grandkids. I don't blame him. And then in 2019, he revealed a bombshell that he had sold $21 million, actually earned $21 million from the sale of his guitars to the Client Earth charity. Yeah, everyone's like, oh my goodness, he sold his guitars for climate change? Well, let him do what he wants. It's a free world. And, he made the money, donated the money of the sale. And the guy, Jim Irwin, whatever, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, bought David's old black Strat and his red Strat. And various other guitars were sold for various amounts of money. And David also wound up not getting rid of the Workmate Telecaster, nor his Gretsch black guitar. And he still had Fender Custom Shop black Strats that Fender made for him. So he wound up putting a black cat sticker on one of them. Oh man, so he still has a lot of the tools of the trade, which he still has. So he still has like 25, 30 guitars in his possession. And he did not get rid of a few key ones. The Lewis guitar he didn't get rid of. And he didn't get rid of the Fender double neck pedal steel that he used on Shine On You Crazy Diamond either. Thank goodness for that. Nor the Lewis electric guitar, which he did the solo on Echoes, the solo on Money, on Dark Side of the Moon, Echoes on Metal. And that guitar is still in his possession. So he got rid of, and he still has one of his Candy Apple Red Strat duplicates with the EMG pickup. So he basically kept a bunch, got rid of some of the ones he didn't need, and kept the ones he really needed. Also during that time frame, he oversaw the release of the Pink Floyd Later Years box set, which saw an updated remix version of A Momentary Lapse of Reason, which I'll talk about in the future, the expanded remix Delicate Sound of Thunder, the album and the film, the re-edited film of Pulse, Live at Knapworth 1990 remixed, and some outtakes from the Division Bell sessions on the CD that was exclusive to that box set. So David has been pretty busy with various different things, and in 2020 he played at a Tribute to Peter Green concert, which shared the bill with the likes of Steven Tyler of Aerosmith, Mick Fleetwood of Fleetwood Mac, Kirk Hammett of Metallica. So basically David played with quite a few people. And then the dreaded C Word hit just as he was about to promote it. Him and his wife Polly Sampson were about to promote her book, A Theater for Dreamers. And he had written a new song for that, her audio book called Yes I Have Ghosts, which I'll talk about on the review of the album, because I think the song belongs in the album, which it is mercifully on the CD, in the Blu-ray disc version of the album. So that song was recorded. In fact, you have like several different mixes of it. And there was also a few other things which were recorded for the promo disc for it, which was an instrumental called Tell the Truth, which was in the key of D minor, but very effective and very excellent, kind of a little different vibe for David. And then Astral Dust, which is one of my favorite instrumentals, which was not released on, is not going to be released anywhere else, but I think a brilliant piece of music. Him with the piano, classical guitar, and the pedal steel. Beautiful piece of music. And then the last was Coconelli, which was him playing, classical guitar, keyboards, and the Weissenborn steel string acoustic dobro type thing. And those songs are done for that audiobook of A Theater for Dreamers, which Polly Sampson wrote about 1960 era Hydra, or is it Hydra? Either way, Hydra was a monster. Hydra, I guess, was an island or something. I haven't an iota. It's one of those things with words with multiple pronunciation keys. Let's just put it that way. So then also during that time, because of COVID, David and his family decided to do some live streams promoting the book at Theatre for Dreamers, taking place at David's barn in Sussex, England, and basically did the wife would be reading excerpts from the book, and then David would be playing Leonard Cohen covers. Although on some episodes he did do some episodes he did. On one of them, which was episode 5, he did On an Island with his daughter, harmonizing. And he also did Hickory Wind, a cover of the Graham Parsons cover from, the late great Graham Parsons from the Byrds. And then on that particular episode, I actually submitted a question to David and his wife, Polly. And this is under my old ancient Instagram handle, which I used to have, which was called TJR Floyd Fan. Sadly, that account's no more because some SJW got bent out of shape at me after I fought with him. I had the account yanked. I had a reputation of fighting, but at least David was kind enough to answer a question of mine for the second time in 18 years. The first was in 2002 for an autism charity. Here's the screen cap of the question I submitted in 2002. And he kindly answered, which I was surprised. And then 18 years later, he duplicated the feat. And here's what I asked him, and here is the cordial and funny response to it. Roll the footage.
A question from TJR Floyd fan. Says, David and Polly, when the two of you first got together, did you think you'd still collaborate in 2022 or even remain together 28 years later?
I never had any doubts that we'd still be happily together after however many years it is or could be.
And I mean, it is an incredibly long, a working relationship. You have been in one or two bands in the past. Yeah. How does this differ from those sorts of collaborations?
It's fantastic. It's been really, really the best time of my life, the time we have done things together, including the Division Bell Pink Floyd one and the 2 solo albums I've sort of done since. It's brilliant.
What do you think is the secret of your collaborative success?
She's brilliant at everything. Words.
What the fuck?
And I can knock out a tune or two. And it fits.
I think the secret of it is that we're happy to take turns.
As you could see, I was very elated when they answered my question. Sadly, I lost that Instagram account, not because of the Gilmour camp, not because of Roger Waters, but because some SJW rubbed me the wrong way. I think it was one of the RMCP fans that gave me a hard time, and I just blew up at him, and Instagram had my old account yanked. I just don't put up with the BS of bullies or being trolled or pushed around. I didn't make my reputation of being pushed like a kid. I made my reputation of standing up and fighting for what was right on my end. But I digress. And then during lockdown, the standalone releases of the aforementioned parts of the Pink Floyd later years happened. And then 2022 was when also during that time, Roger Waters' feud with David Gilmour and his wife started to go completely nuclear because Roger was angry that his solo performance as a mother and his lockdown sessions were not promoted by the official Pink Floyd channels. I mean, during that time frame, Roger had alienated part of the Pink Floyd fandom with his hatred for a certain orange-haired man, I'll leave nameless. Orange man, let's just say it was a good case of TDS. And also Roger's insistence on having everyone and their mother boycott Israel, whereas David knows if there's fans all over the world, regardless of their religious, political, and colored beliefs or whatever, we're all human beings, folks. And, Fed, who owns the Pink Floyd websites, didn't want to promote Roger's things because it would alienate a good chunk of the fans. So Roger did what he did, and Roger was bemoaning the fact. And then on top of that, a reissue of Animals was delayed because David didn't want the liner notes on the album Roger did. Roger's buddies with the writer, Mark Blake. And that delayed the release of the Animals reissue, which, quite frankly, I was not a fan of that remix. It's nice and all, but I go to the original mix because I think the original mix was just awesome. And also during 2022, the feud between Waters and Gilmour went even more nuclear when David and Nick recorded the one-off charity single Hey Hey Rise Up with Guy Pratt on bass guitar and on... Hang on just a sec, I got the CD right here so I can read it for you. Oh, here it is. Nitin Sawhney on keyboards, and from Andrei Kyivnuch of Boombox, a Ukrainian band, singing the song, an old Ukrainian folk song, Mada Ukraina, Hey Rise Up. Oh my goodness! I mean, I think the song is great and all, and it was for a good cause. The money went to the citizens of Ukraine who were attacked by that coward Putin, who attacked every Eastern European country whenever there was a Democrat in the White House, even one Republican in the White House, which was Elder Bush. No, Bush Jr. Because under Clinton he did some crap, under Bush he did some crap, under Obama he did crap, under Biden he did crap. And under Trump, ironically, Putin ran scared like a coward because he knew Trump would have basically sent Putin running scared. Say what you want about Trump, at least there was no wars under Trump because he knew Putin was nothing but a schoolyard bully who was scared, big time petrified of, Putin was petrified of Trump because he knew Trump would not mess around, so to speak. Yeah, Trump might be a loudmouth and all, but those who just have, get easily offended by words, you need to grow up here and re-embrace things the way they used to be. That's all I'm going to say about that. And, that was released. Roger sided with Russia, and, various things happened. And then towards the end of last year, David decided to focus his energies and try to focus on a new album, but Roger, and then Paulie Sampson called out Roger for his anti-Ukraine, pro-Russia shenanigans, and the lip-syncing, calling him a lip-syncing anti-Semitic to his rotten core, tax-avoiding misogynist. Well, I kind of agree with her on those tweets in a way, but then also Roger did have a reputation of being, he's been divorced 4 times. He's now in his 5th marriage, this time to a woman he can control, because the other women he had married just didn't put up with his crap. They were like, Roger, you're behaving like a complete ass, so we're not going to put up with your BS. So that happened. Paulie Sampson puts out that tweet, David agrees with her, and then Roger counters with threatening to sue, and then Roger took a shot at David's wife on stage at the O2 in London, saying, imagine waking up to her. And then David puts out a tweet on what's now known as X, but was known as Twitter at the time, saying, yeah, I do enjoy waking up to her every morning. Oh my goodness. The feud between those two will never end. It's like the Tommy Shaw and Dennis DeYoung feud in Styx, where Tommy is taking shots at Dennis. Now Dennis is finally fighting back after being silent for over a quarter century. Dennis is finally coming back with some punches of his own. So the Pink Floyd feud is just like the Styx feud, except the roles are reversed. Tommy Shaw is like the Roger Waters because they're both Virgo, they're both, set in their ways. And Dennis DeYoung and David Gilmour were kind of in the other camp, so to speak. But Roger's behavior has kind of cost him a lot of respect. In fact, he didn't have many sellouts on his 2022 U.S. tour because of his SJW shenanigans, but who might have nitpick? But anyway, David, after all the crap that's been going on in the mudslinging, plus the golden anniversary of the Dark Side of the Moon happened in 2023 with a box set, standalone release of Live at Wembley, David finally found time to start work on his first new album of new material since Rattle That Lock, called Luck and Strange. And there's some changes of who David worked with. In fact, David has a new co-producer on this album, a gentleman by the name of Charlie Andrew, who worked with a band called Alt J. I've never heard them, but I might as well give them a try, although I tend to be a hard rock metal fan, but so be it. Matt Glasby being one of the engineers, Damon Iddens, and it was mixed by David, Charlie Andrew, and Matt Glasby. So this is the first album since About Face that David Gilmour has not worked with Phil Manzanera as a co-producer. And it's the first album since his first solo album that Andy Jackson was not really involved, because Andy was recording his own album, which he released on a small label, which I think people don't give the proper notice to, because a certain Jezebel by the name of Taylor Swift has a stranglehold on the music industry. But such is life. Anyway, back to the new David album. The album was recorded at Medina Studios in London, or actually in Hove Brighton, one of his other homes. Also at Salvation Studios, British Grove, which is owned by Dire Straits guitarist Mark Knopfler. Brilliant band. I love Dire Straits. Also at Angel Studios, where the orchestra was recorded, as was Eli Cathedral, which was where the choir was recorded. Astoria, David's Houseboat, and Iguana Studios, and at his barn. Yeah, at his barn house in Sussex, England. So it was recorded all over the place, with photography done by Anton Corbin, who's famous for his photographs of Metallica, U2, many bands, videos for Depeche Mode. So he's worked with quite a few people. The art director of the album cover was Aubrey Powell of Hypnosis fame. How can anyone hate Aubrey Powell and Hypnosis? It's impossible. And the artwork, design, and layout was done by Steve Nee at Blade Design. Again, Steve Nee has been one of David's main album cover design guys since On an Island. And David has quite a few all-stars in this album. Guy Pratt playing the bass guitar on just about every song except one. And I'll tell you which one that is when I get to it. The drums on the majority of this album was Steve Gadd, the one and only. How can anyone hate Steve Gadd? The master of the... That's the drum pattern to 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by Paul Simon. Just about the bag, Jack. Oh my goodness. And Steve Gadd's also played with Eric Clapton. He's played with everybody. So Steve Gadd plays the majority of the drums on this album, except for two tracks, which I'll tell you the drummers on those. One of which was Steve DeStanislaw, who appears on one, technically if you buy the CD, two of the tracks, on the vinyl record, one of the tracks, which is the centerpiece of the album, and the namesake of the album. And the other drummer is, as I read this darn thing, Adam Betts, who will be touring with David. And on bass guitar is Guy Pratt on every track except for one, which is Tom Herbert playing bass on one of the tracks. I'll tell you which one that is when I get to it. Rob Gentry on keyboards, David on guitars, vocals, ukulele, Hofner bass, Farfisa organ, string samples, vocals. And it's pretty much a family affair because Romany Gilmour does some backing vocals on the majority of the tracks. That's his youngest daughter. His son Gabriel does backing vocals on another track, along with David and Romany. And Charlie Gilmour co-wrote the lyrics to one of the tracks, and eldest son Joe makes a cameo appearance on another track. So yes, this is a family affair, this album. Literally, not just figuratively, but literally speaking. And the themes of this album have a lot to do with aging, mortality, and as aging baby boomers are slowly but surely starting to leave this world for the other side. Some would call the afterlife, some would call another dimension. Just various different places, but a lot of people are just starting to drop off. Baby boomers, the World War II generation, Gen Xers killing themselves, Zennials, which are microgeneration XY, which applies to yours truly, because I was born between 76 and 82, so we were a hybrid of X and Y. Not quite X, but not quite Y either. We're caught in the crossfire. And then you have the millennials and the Zoomers, of course, trying to decide who's better. Oh, man. So it's like being caught in a crossfire. And for the tracks I've heard, since I have the CD, I heard 4 of the 10 tracks pre-release. The Piper's Call, when I first heard it, I was like, it's nice and all. But then the more I played it, the more I dug it. The cover of Between 2 Points, was nice and all. But as I've heard this album quite a few times now, I like it even more. Dark and Velvet Nights on first listen I enjoyed. And some of these other tracks, I wanted to do the album justice, not just on one listen, which many of these reviewers do it on one play. I lived with the album for about 24 hours, playing it 4 times, and wanted to give my unbiased, honest, candid assessment of this new album. So what do I think of the songs? Do I think it's great? Do I think it's terrible? Is it somewhere in the middle? You'd be very surprised. So without further ado, here's my look at the brand new album with the review. We begin the new David Gilmour album, Luck and Strange, with an instrumental called Black Cat, which is a minute and a half of brilliant guitar playing, orchestral swell synthesizers played by keyboard player Rob Gentry, who's one of the main keyboard players on the upcoming tour, plus piano from David himself, and Roger Eno, who played the piano on A Boat Lies Waiting on the previous album, and David on guitars, including his new Black Cat Fender Stratocaster, which is the main guitar that he's winding up using on the majority of the tracks on this album. And the Black Cat Strat makes its proper debut on this track. Although I think you've seen it without the Black Cat sticker in the Faces of Stone promo video, which was shot at Medina during the Rattle That Lock period. But it's the same newer Black Strat, not the old original that he put up on the the bidding block. And the guy that owns the Indianapolis Colts, Jim Irwin, owns that Black Strat now, the old Black Strat, plus some of David's other guitars, Ringo Starr's drum kit, and 2 guitars from Nirvana's Kurt Cobain. And I have my opinions on that dude, but I don't want to say him because I don't want to upset Nirvana fans. But he was a tormented soul who basically checked himself out in a moment of darkness. But, Black Cat, beautiful instrumental. My only gripe is that it's too short. 1 minute and 30 seconds. It should be like 3 minutes. Because I can listen to an instrumental of that caliber for 3 or 4 minutes, but I think what David's trying to do is set up the mood for what's about to happen. Because on the previous album, 3 a.m. began the album, and it was over 3 minutes, 5 a.m. And then on the previous album before that, Costello Rising, which clocked in at 4 minutes, there was no instrumental beginning About Face. And the first album began with a 6-minute instrumental, Nihilus. But any David Gilmour instrumental is brilliant, and this instrumental is no exception to the rule. And just, I was like, how is the rest of this instrumental going to be? And luckily it turned out to be just as killer, just as great, just as fantastic. And that's basically all I can say about the instrumental that opens the album, Black Cat. But a beautiful instrumental. Now we get to the title track, with lyrics by Polly Sampson, music by David Gilmour himself. And the song is basically about the impact of the baby boom generation. And the music bed started from a barn jam back in 2007 with David on guitars, Steve DeStanislao on drums, who was David's touring drummer for the On an Island tour and the Rattle That Lock tour, and he played on half of that album. And he plays on this track as well. And sadly, he's not touring this time around because he's busy with his own jazz band, A and B. COVID variant's still out there, and, amicably decided not to take part. But, David and Steve are still on good terms, and no bad blood from either of them. Guy Pratt on bass guitar. In fact, Guy plays the bass on every track of this album, for a change. And you can't have a David project without Guy Pratt, who is the son-in-law of the keyboard player on this track, the late, great Rick Wright. Anything with Rick on it, you know it's going to be a treat. And this track here started from just a jam, although the middle section added was a nice touch. And the lyrics, like I said, was David and Polly's views on the idea that the baby boomers, the post-war generation, they thought that the wars were over, thought they were moving into a golden age, and the Prime Minister of England back in those days, Harold Macmillan, his famous phrase was, "You never had it so good." It was so wonderful to live through, and the experience of people who were in these rock bands being able to do the touring was a beautiful and lovely thing. Is that moment we've been living through the norm, or is that moment a moment, and that moment's gone or going? And I tend to look at the world as is Polly with a more jaundiced eye that maybe we are moving forward. Yeah, or we've been living through that norm. And the experience, and basically that moment is changed. But just a great track. Rick's electric piano, Fender Rhodes, and his Hammond organ work on this track is brilliant. There were some new additions, being David's vocals, guitar solos, extra synthesizers from Rob Gentry, and backing vocals by David and his daughter Romany. And this song is just, And one of the things I like about it is David's vocals are delayed, and he sings it pretty much in his baritone, except for I'm reading this. Seek what you find, that is a wasted life, or so the ancients dropped me by to tell me. They drank me dry, but oh my, so far. Him singing that part in a falsetto. Just when you think, can he sing in falsetto, he hits a high B, just a notch under the octave above middle C. At 78 years old, him hitting notes like that, he's one of the few singers whose singing voices remain intact. I'm looking at you, Paul Stanley. I'm looking at you, Steven Tyler. Even Geddy Lee I have to look at. Tommy Shaw using auto-tune. Roger Waters, pre-recorded vocals, you bastard. Dennis DeYoung is the only other singer who, at an advancing age, can still hit those notes. And David is like Dennis DeYoung, one of the few singers who can still bring and still sound great. And of course, the guitar solos in this track are brilliant. And the lyrics just said it all, In the light before the dawn, shadows, snakes in my peripheral, mesmerize me, bring it on. Heartbeats with fear, the theater of my soul. You see, I hope it will go on, and when the curtain's done, morning always comes. It was a fine time to be born. Demop Happy Street and free milk for us all. It was the right place to be sure. Those dream inspires and oh so pastoral, but let's hope it's not just luck and strange, a one-off peaceful golden age that's a dark through in the dark. Quite the time to be a boy. Six-string masters of an expanding universe was a high time to be sure, soaring and free from the bounds of the earth. But let's hope it's not just luck and strange. The repeat of the chorus. In time for this mortal man to love this child that holds my hand and the woman who smiles when I embrace her. These eyes stay dry, but my guitar. Him ending the song in the falsetto again, which is quite great to hear him stretch his vocal cords out a bit. On the last album, on In Any Tongue, he was whistling. And you're like, sheesh, an elderly person whistling. And him singing, pushing the top of his vocal range. I mean, it's just great to hear that sort of thing. And the version that's on the album is 7 minutes with an amazing outro guitar solo from David. Again, played on the Strat, but the main guitar used on the backing track was his black Gretsch guitar that he bought in 76, 77, which is one of the guitars he did not get rid of because he loves that guitar so much. And Rick on the Hammond organ, the electric piano, you gotta love Rick Wright. I mean, those who said Roger Waters was Pink Floyd, I guess you did not hear read the credits of Atom Heart Mother, Metal, Obscured by Clouds, Dark Side of the Moon, and Wish You Were Here. Most of the music on those albums was David and Rick. Roger was predominantly a lyricist, but he was known to borrow a piece of music or two from one of the band members and not give them credit for it. You know, Roger was not into giving credit where credit is due. But such is life. But the title track to Luck and Strange, amazing song. I love it. I dig it. Not much more I can add about the song, but I just think it's a great song. Now we get to the next song in the album called The Piper's Call, which, according to David on the EPK, is about that Faustian pact with the devil. Just think of Phantom of the Paradise or the old Faustian tale, you know. And the song features David on guitars, ukulele, slide guitar, which is the Rickenbacker steel, the guitar solo played on the gold top Les Paul, the Black Strat is one of the main guitars, the Workmate Telecaster, Hofner bass guitar, and Farfisa organ David plays. And on the drum, Guy Pratt on bass guitar, Rob Gentry on keyboards, and on the drums and percussion, the one and only Steve Gadd, the same cat that gave us that classic drum pattern to Paul Simon's 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, the drumming on Late in the Evening from One Trick Pony. He was Paul Simon's go-to drummer for many years, Steve Gadd. Just a great drummer. He's played with just about everybody. Eric Clapton, Carly Simon. He's played with a who's who of everybody. And to play on David's new album, he does a damn good job on it. And that guy is, almost 80 years old, and he's still playing very well. He's the master of the groove. And yeah, this makes him the fourth American in a row to play drums on a David Gilmour album. Because he had Jeff Porcaro on About Face, he had Andy Newmark on An Island, and parts of Rattle That Lock. Steve DeStanislaw on Rattle That Lock, and he also plays on here as well on the previous track. And on the Piper's Call, and for the rest of the album, except for the one song I'll bring up, you have the great Steve Gadd on the drums. And David's daughter Romany and son Gabriel singing harmonies. In a choir which was recorded at Angel Studios was, and also at Ely Cathedral, they sing, the choir's part on the Piper's Call, and also some additional vocals by Will Gardner and Kate Huggett. And of course, this was the first song released from the album back in earlier this year. And the lyrics, take these binds everlasting, can't undo the voodoo that you do, and the knots that we fasten will not work themselves loose. Whatever it takes, steer clear of the snakes. The road to hell is paved with gold, they'll tell you, and David harmonizing with himself on that part. All the things that you don't need, they'll sell you. Your conscience controlled, in beauty to behold. And then in the chorus, the promise of eternal youth, the spoils of fame, a carpe diem attitude. And then the final verse, the flames are high, the piper's call contagious, a fixer who will numb your pain and strangeness, the wheels are hot, the hangover outrageous, this deal he will trade your soul for favors, but you'll reap what you sow, as I found long ago. See, you'd be singing for days, and then the repeat of the chorus, and then the ending where David just launches a guitar solo that soars out of the ballpark. At his age, he can still play that damn thing. And we got to protect them at all costs, because, in the last few years, we lost Neil Peart of Rush. We lost Eddie Van Halen. We lost a lot of great rock musicians. We need to protect David at any cost here, folks. And David, in his Rolling Stone interview with Andy Green, says about the track, quote, has nothing to do with the piper from the Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It's a different piper. You can't stay away from these things because they're just there. This is more the Piper of Hamelin. I suppose it's a song about that carpe diem attitude and the spoils of fame. I think that's probably directed at me and all the temptations and fun of the rock and roll lifestyle that we all lived through. And where those things are to be aware of getting too deeply involved with. He's right on that one, folks. The rock and roll lifestyle can be dangerous. We lost a lot of famed rock and rollers in that so-called Faustian pact. We lost Brian Jones, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Keith Moon, John Bonham, John Panazzo, Freddie Mercury, many people, Syd Barrett, Rick Wright, David Bowie, Glenn Frey, Lemmy, Cliff Burton, Bon Scott, Malcolm Young. We lost a lot of people over the years. The Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash. John Rutsey, Neil Peart, Eddie Van Halen. Oh man, a lot of people don't get out of it alive. Especially those that die before their time or die before they hit their 70s. Oh man, it's one of the strangest dichotomies. In the song "The Piper's Call," I always liked the tune. The song hit me was one of the, this was the first thing they played I heard from the album before it came out. And each time I hear it now, especially in the context of the album, I love it even more. "The Piper's Call" for the win. The next track on the album is a song entitled, as I grab the CD booklet here, just bear with me, I'm reading here, "A Single Spark," which again features David on just about everything, vocals, guitars, especially that brilliant Stratocaster solo, backing vocals along with his son Gabriel and his daughter Romany, keyboards once again by Rob Gentry, and a different rhythm section on this track, bass player Tom Herbert on bass guitar, and drums and percussion by Adam Betts. And Adam Betts is the touring drummer on this upcoming tour, which I'll talk about when I'm done with the review. But this song, "A Single Spark," I don't know if there's any backstory, but "A Single Spark" actually originated, the idea for it came to David when he saw, was reading someone's autobiography. He was on a plane touring for the About Face album in 1984, and he saw a red dot in the sky, thinking that we're just a single spark in this ever-known universe, as opposed to, compared to other things that are in other dimensions and stuff. And reading these lyrics here, as I get to the track here, just bear with me. Okay, here we go. Oop, the page of the booklet is stuck. Here we go. "Single Spark. These days of wild uncertain times, I ask the empty skies, who will keep things rolling, who to sing hosannas to. The temple calls, but I can't see what use my prayers will be, and will this world keep rolling with only good intentions? Still it fills the eye, this line of stone, incense icons coming on strong, here comes splendor, hallowed air, and is it wonder or? Despair bends my knees, the day's dying flame motes in its beam, glitters and blaze. Say, isn't it true that it's all through us in a single spark between two eternities? I'll watch the moon kick off my shoes, reach for my old guitar, fed on milk and honeydew. What things can we undo?" And luckily he didn't sing, I was fed on milk and honeydew and drank the milk of paradise. Yeah, next thing you know, he'd be singing Xanadu by Rush about Kubla Khan. Sheesh. Sam Coleridge's book on Kubla Khan. But what can you do? Desire bends my knee, of course another repeat of the chorus. Desire bends my knee, the dying embers flame, hungry to believe but just the same. Isn't it true that it's all through in a single spark between two eternities? Between the night's embrace, I'm thankful and afraid, so pray keep things rolling, I've only got good intentions. But a brilliant song it is. I think it's a great tune. The musicianship is amazing. David's guitar work is amazing. And just a great song. I mean, it's, like I said, I've just been listening to the album just a few times before doing this review, and so far, I think it's a great tune. And I wonder how it's going to be live. We'll keep you posted. But A Single Spark, brilliant tune, not much more I can add. Now we get to the penultimate song on side one of the record, which is another instrumental called Vita Brevis, or is it Vita Brevis, which features David on guitars and his daughter Romany on harp. Sheesh. When you hear this instrumental, you're thinking, which is just 46 seconds, sorry. I said 46 minutes like a buffoon. 46 seconds, it just builds and builds and builds. And when you hear harps, you're like, sheesh, is there another universe? But I just think the instrumental is brilliant. A great sort of little interlude that gets to the next track, which is a cover of a song called Between 2 Points, which was written musically by Mark Trammer and lyrics by Roger Quigley. And it's a cover of a song from, as I read this thing here, hang on, the Montgolfier Brothers. And most people weren't familiar with that tune. And the song was always a favorite of David and Polly, and it kept playing on the playlists and on his phone. It kept coming up on the car journeys one day. And David went to the studio and thought he might muck about with the tune and see what happened. And he went in, sang it in one key. It wasn't what he wanted. And then he tried it again in another key. It didn't suit him either. So then, as they were doing the album, Polly and David both agreed, let's give our daughter Romany a try, because she always loved singing, and she's also playing harp on this track. And she only heard the song once or twice in her life on the playlist, but didn't know it. And then she basically had to catch a train before recording the vocal that you hear on the record. The vocal of hers on the song is the one and only take done for her, because she had a train to catch. And let me just say this. Her singing voice is 10 times better than Taylor Swift. I know Swifties are going to get their torches and their flaming arrows and their guns and shoot the messenger here. You know, Romany Gilmour has more talent in her pinky finger than that Jezebel Taylor Swift who shakes her ass like she has cockroaches in the damn thing. And, and Taylor Swift, one day she'll probably be another music biz casualty, but you never know. But Romany Gilmour has more talent than her, or SZA, or Beyonce, or any of those clowns. Just be merciful that Katy Perry and Britney Spears' careers are over. Let's just thank goodness for that. But this song is great, beautiful, and this is actually Romany's second vocal on a Gilmour track, because she also did co-lead vocals on another track, which I'll bring up a little later, which was released 4 years before this album. But reading the lyrics to Between 2 Points, broken early promise, put trust in an unknown, fell headlong into the arms of the first that stirred me, unsteadied a steady heart, and took me to a place I've never been, a place I've never been since. Stopped hoping at an early age, stopped guessing at an early age, started accepting things from day one, and then things can't go too wrong. And then, of course, the chorus, just let them walk all over you, laugh through the punches and the pain, let the life blood drain away from you, they're right, you're wrong. And you can see the way they look at you, feel it in the way that they treat you, always the last to know, always the first to leave. Brilliant lyrics. And of course, on this track, it features David on guitars, in additional keyboards, Rob Gentry on keyboards, piano synthesizer, Guy Pratt on bass guitar, Steve Gadd on drums, percussion by Steve Gadd and Adam Betts, and backing vocals by David and Romany, and David pulling out a brilliant guitar solo that wouldn't have sounded out of place on the ending of Near the End on his second solo album About Face, which kind of ended in that sort of key block of G7 into the F sharp minor, and but it kind of has that vibe listening to the outro guitar solo, which takes up the last 2 minutes of the song, because the version that was released before the album was the 4.5 minute edit, so they cut out a good chunk of David's guitar solo. I'm glad to get on the album and get the full solo, so the song clocks in almost 6 minutes. And a brilliant song it is. Not much more I can add to Between 2 Points, but a grower. I mean, at first I was like, nice and all, but the more I listen to it, the more I love it. it's one of those things. Sometimes certain songs will just hit you right at you, bang. Others it's just like, yeah, it's nice, and then it's like, oh, I'm beginning to like this even more, even more, even more. You know, it's one of the things I can say brilliantly about this song is, I dig it. I think it's a great tune. Between 2 points, I heard the original, but Romany, in my mind, hit it out of the damn ballpark with that one take. And just a great song. You know, the original is nice, but what David and Romany did with it, brilliant. Now you flip vinyl record to side 2, and we continue on to track 7 of the CD with a piece of music called Dark and Velvet Nights, which David wrote earlier this year, and he's on guitars and Hammond organ on this track, and Rob Gentry on additional Hammond organ, Guy Pratt once again on bass, Steve Gadd again on drums. And the song has David playing various different guitars, the Workmate Telecaster and a Gibson ES335, which begins with that feedback note, and you're thinking you're going to have a heavy, hard rock tune very beginning, kind of almost sounding like a Metallica intro, you know, a doom sludge thing. Then all of a sudden it goes into a piece in the key of F minor, this sort of up-tempo ditty. And this song features David on the Gibson ES335, Workmate Telecaster, and the lap steel. And of course the lyrics. I didn't think that this could be all that unto death do we, till you managed to lock and magic the key after a hard night of hard drink and ecstasy. It's softer than words that were spoken, blackened on paper that's shredded and torn, or carved into stones that lying shattered and broken, branches beyond along the wrong path, winding up in the past. In this dark and velvet night that surrounds us, this dark and velvet night, I will wrap around us. Oh my goodness. It's softer than words that are spoken or painted as slogans and flung to the lions, written on slips as the pundits wait smoke in a leap of faith, the odds sky high. Say goodbye to your place of mine. And then goes into this very creepy, this section in F sharp minor with some G minor thrown in. Don't like to make promises that I can't keep. Don't want to hurt this old heart or wreck my sleep thinking how we will part. Will I hold your hand or will you be left holding mine between this breath and then? There's this airlock of time and then right back into this dark and velvet night. Oh my goodness. And this song is just another song is just, I don't know, it's just hard to believe. I mean, this song, when I first heard it, I loved it from the get-go, and just a amazing song. Plus David's guitar solo on this track, he hits it out of the ballpark once again. I mean, David on this track just playing, woof. The guitar solo is just a great, one of his best guitar solos. Even if he's not using the black Strat, you can spot his tone and his playing. It's in the fingers and the emotions of the playing. I mean, you could give Jimmy Page, say, a Flying V, and he'll still make it sound like Jimmy Page. You give Brian May a Parker Fly, and he'll still sound like Brian May. I mean, Brian May did the guitar, Eddie Van Halen, a Gibson double neck for on Secrets. It still sounds like Eddie Van Halen, except for the guitar solo, which was one of his Frankenstrats. But you know what I mean. It's in the fingers. And also give a drummer a pair of drumsticks, and they're going to sound like their sound. Phil Collins on another person's drum kit, or Neil Peart, may he lay in peace, put him behind a 4-piece kit, or if he had put him behind a 4-piece kit, he would still sound like Neil. It's in the talent. Equipment is one thing, but it's just, those are giving gifts to musicians. Maybe in a guitarist, drummer, keyboard player, I can spot brilliant pieces of music. And what I also like about this track is the offbeat orchestration done by, which was recorded at Angel Studios. And I'm reading this. Yeah, Will Gardner's orchestration on this track is just amazing. Not much more I can add to Dark and Velvet Nights, but one of the best songs I've heard, in just a amazing song. Terrence, not to get off course here, but you forgot to mention that Dark and Velvet Nights' lyrics, those lyrics you recited, were actually inspired by a poem that David Gilmour's wife Polly had written for their 29th wedding anniversary in 2023. They were staying at a house in London where it was their little workshop to fine-tune the material to get these songs recorded. And David was in his music studio and he saw the poem that Polly had written about, which were basically the lyrics, and then David just started singing that poem, and he was like, this is it. So he caught lightning in a bottle, so to speak, with that poem, which he just turned into the lyrics of the song. Sometimes these things just happen very mysteriously and very serendipitously. And I got something I got to say about Polly Samson. And this is nothing negative, but this is actually the truth. She saved David from becoming a potential rock and roll casualty in the early 90s. She's been married to David for 30 years. And those who call her Yoko Ono, shut the hell up. I mean, Dennis DeYoung's been married to his wife for what, 54 years? And they've been together for 60 years. It doesn't make a difference. I mean, if you're in love with a woman and they are with you through thick and through thin, you have nothing to worry about. Plus, Dennis was a family man, had his wife and kids on tour with him. So you morons who are just kissing Roger Waters' backside, shut the hell up. Good God almighty. I mean, you know, and then Dennis DeYoung coincidentally had his family members on some of his albums. On Desert Moon, he had, you know, his wife and daughter sing on one track. On the 10 on Broadway album, they returned to sing on a track. His son Matt played drums on one track on 100 Years From Now. And on 26 East Volume 1, he played drums on To the Good Old Days. And on the last 26 East Volume 2, he plays the drums on The Isle of Misanthrope and Grand Finale 2021. So yeah, Dennis and David both cherish their families. As my phone goes off, I'll leave that in because I'm a human being. But yeah, the thread here is David found happiness with his second marriage. And luckily he's still in good graces with the kids from his first marriage. You know, although they live all spread out all across the world in England and the United States, you know, he finds time for both families. And the fact that Polly, you know, was a stabilizing force. I mean, I guess you people don't know about true love. I mean, it's hard to word it, but you know, Polly was to David what for many years Teresa Barrick was to Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. A saving grace godsend, so to speak. Sometimes you meet people and females, even if they don't become your lovers, they become very important stabilizing forces in your life. I know from personal experience because one of my very best friends is a female, and as of this month, celebrating 27 years of being friends with her, kind of become like a little sister figure to me. My friend Danielle. She is to me what Polly Samson is to David, a very stabilizing force in our lives, bringing joy, happiness, what have you. And Polly can do what Roger Waters just kind of forgot what to do. I mean, Roger is a brilliant lyricist, I'm not going to deny him that, but he's been stifled on the same topics ad nauseum, which is war, my dad, attacking political leaders. Polly kind of does more, more mortality, aging, fiction sort of things to kind of, various different things. And also on top of that, she was on the Division Bell, a collaborator, which there's nothing wrong with collaborating. David, unlike Roger, didn't mind giving writing credit to Polly because she actually came up with part of the lyrics. So he was like, you co-wrote some of these lyrics, so I'm giving you a writing credit. Roger probably wouldn't have credited his own mother if she had come up with an idea for a lyric or something. He wouldn't even quote or give credit to his own kid. In fact, Isn't he the same guy who fired his own son on Christmas Day from his solo band? That's cold. Even David would not do something like that to his own kid. In fact, he plugged his kid, Matt, from his first marriage's last album, Collages, which I think is a brilliant album. Sadly, it didn't do squat in the Taylor Swift dominated music world, but who am I to nitpick? So to those who say Polly is Yoko Ono, get the hell out of here. She's a phenomenal human being. I mean, political views aside, I think she's a wonderful human being. You know, because like I said, in everyone there's good and bad in every one of us. It's just how you choose to be is the bottom line. I know I shouldn't go off topic on these things, but I had to put my foot down. Anyway, Dark and Velvet Nights, so far one of the best songs in the album, probably my third favorite track on the album. I dig it. I loves it. Now we get to the penultimate song on the record, which is called Sings, which has David, most of the same musicians as the previous track, Steve Gadd on drums, Guy Pratt on bass guitar, David on guitars, again, keyboards by Rob Gentry, and vocals by David himself. And the song, as I read these lyrics, darling, turn back the clock, give me time, make it stop, let's hold back the new stay inside this cocoon, no doubting you, no doubting me, no doubt the mess we're in, sail away my dreams, away. I mean, Polly Sampson writes great lyrics. I know some people are going to be like, oh, how can she write lyrics for David? They're horrible. Go listen to Roger Waters whine and cry about how bad life is. I mean, at my age, I don't want to be hearing pissing and moaning. I want peace and stability. Not, oh, the world sucks. I hate this guy. I hate that guy. I mean, I love Roger. Don't get me wrong. This is not like an anti-Roger Waters episode, because it's not. But him whining and, crying and complaining about everything. No wonder he's been divorced 4 times already. And no wonder people just grow to hate the dude. He's a miserable bastard. You know, David's like, I don't need Roger's crap at my age. Found a lifetime ago down the Portobello Road, which is an actual street in England. Because I thought Portobello Road was some fictional place, but that Mark Knopfler sang about on the song from Dire Straits' Communique album, but it's an actual road in England. Just like Telegraph Road's an actual road in Michigan. Lover's snapshot of delight, those rosy days of black and white. Darling, don't make the tea. Stay and snooze here with me. I'm not ready for the news or to leave this cocoon. No doubting you, no doubting me, no doubt the mess we live in. And then you hear a sample of little Gabriel Gilmour, David's son, saying, "Sing, Daddy, sing," during the song. As I read this here, yeah, the song "Sings" is actually a conversation between David and Polly, and saying that's exactly right. A couple are slightly odd since they sound like I've written them and saying them to her, but she's saying them to herself. There's a bit of the song where you can hear my son, who's now 29, saying, "Sing, Daddy, sing," when he was an infant. It was recorded on a mini disc player in '97. We floated that in towards the end, and he loves the song. I do too. The only thing about it that would have been even better is another guitar solo, but we have plenty of guitar solo pyrotechnics on this record, so we kind of do need a little breather from it, but the musicianship on this track is great nevertheless. And a song that just, I don't know, just more I listen to it, the more I love it. Anything else to add to Sings? Nope, but a great tune and great song. Now we end the vinyl record, and it's the third to last song on the CD and the Blu-ray, and you have the actual closer on the vinyl record, the 7+ minute Scattered, which is lyrically written by David, Polly, and Charlie Gilmour. And the lyrics, David wrote the first verse, and his lyric was a bit scattered and seemed to have 3 topics going on in parallel, and Polly thought we should focus on one direction. Then Charlie had had a crack at the lyrics, and he came up with a sort of King Canute thing, trying to hold all back the tide, which leads you to all sorts of strange trains of thought. And she came in and helped with brilliance and expertise to get it finished. And like the previous tracks, this track is really the most Pink Floyd-like of the album. It has the Leslie piano, which kind of gives you a vibe of echoes. 3 different guitar solos from David, making up for the lack of solos on the previous track. Rob Gentry on keyboards and synthesizers, plus piano, and Roger Eno also helping out on piano. David on additional bass guitar and keyboards, vocals, Steve Gadd on drums again, Guy Pratt on bass guitar. Take my arm and walk with me once more down this dusty old path. The sunset cuts the hill in half. Our shadows stretch back to touch the night. The lights fading, but these days darkening flow like honey. These days slowing down, a whole life in a glance. The clearest light shines in the darkness, shining on me. And we're still doing this dance one step at a time as the day slips by as smooth as glass. The moments pass. Just a brilliant lyrics. And all these precious things you gave that I've been holding in my hands, these grains of sand. A man stands in a river, pushes against the stream. Time is a tide that disobeys, and it disobeys me. Then a repeat of the chorus again. And then you go into the first solo, which is a classical guitar solo, and you're like, oh man, this is just an amazing solo. Thinking it's like the ending solo of And Then on Rattle That Lock. But then it goes into something else, which is the clean guitar solo with, I think, the Black Strat doing the second solo, kind of mirroring what Al Stewart did with Year of the Cat, whereas the third solo would be a sax solo. First is an acoustic classical guitar solo, then a electric guitar solo, but instead of a sax solo here, David launches another solo with the Electric Mistress Flange for the final solo of the 3 solos towards the end of the song, and he just nails it. And this song, when I first heard this song just a few hours ago, this song is actually my favorite song in the album. Not because it's the last song in the album, but it's just... musically, it kind of proves that David and, along with Rick Wright, were the secret weapons of Pink Floyd when it came to the music side of the band. And this song is amazing. Finishes also has orchestrations on it by Will Gardner. And the final lyrics, and all these precious things you gave falling from my hands, these worlds, this scattered sand. I stand in a river, push against the stream. Time is a tide that disobeys, and it disobeys me. It never ends, and it ends in the key of E minor, just fading into the distance. And if you have the vinyl album, that's how the album ends. Now we come to the actual last proper song of the album, if you have the CD version of the album and or the Blu-ray version of the album. The aforementioned Yes I Have Ghosts, which David wrote and recorded for his wife Polly's audiobook, A Theater for Dreamers. It was based on some people who stayed on the island of Hydra, or is it Hydra? Whatever you pronounce that place. I'm not good at... I think Hydra was some monster that Toto created, whereas Hydra is actually an actual place. And this piece was first released in 2020 during lockdown. It features David on guitars, vocals, string samples, and programming. Romany partially co-singing lead vocal and also on harp. John McCusker on fiddle. Damon Iddens on string quartet sampling, and all other instruments by David. And this song is just beautiful. And on this version that's on the album here, the Luck and Strange version, Rob Gentry added some additional Farfisa organ. If you have the audio, the HD mix of the album, you can hear the Farfisa. Whereas on this version, you'd have to have your headphones on to hear it. And this beautiful piece was a grower. I mean, at first I thought it was boring, but the more I listened to it, the more I appreciate it. and the more I grew to like it. And I think it's a perfect way to wind this album down. The heat of the sun stayed on through the night, made specters of strangers playing games in my sight. I passed through the station and facing the crowd. The whistle was blown, the barrier came down. There was my baby in another's embrace. I called out her name in shame and disgrace. Yes, I have ghosts, not all of them dead, making dust of my dreams, spinning round and around in my head. Train on the tracks, teeth of the zip. The slider moves down, we were joined at the hip. Steel in the groove, the widening gap. Unfastening rails from a past-unknown map, and then a repeat of the chorus. Where's the sweet soul that you used to be? Gone like a thistle that's blown on the breeze. I guess when it's over, this haunting will end, which the word haunting repeats. The waiting, the baiting, my killer, my friend. Yes, I have ghosts, and all of them dead, and they dance by the moon. Millstones as the sheet on my bed. And the version that's on the album, I think, is the best mix of the three mixes of the track. Because there was one mix that was done by David Gilmour with Andy Jackson that was released as a single, a standalone single for Record Store Day in 2020, which is now out of print. And there's also a version which was, and that was the one that was on the Yes I Have Ghosts EP, which was an autographed CD, which David and his wife Polly signed copies of the book, that CD that came with the book, which is the audio of the music he did for that book. Excellent pieces of music, by the way. Other pieces were Coke Canelli, Astral Dust, and Tell the Truth. And then the B-side of the Record Store Day release of Yes I Have Ghosts was the Andy Jackson mix, which is slightly different than the one that appears on either the A-side or the version that appears on Luck and Strange. But just a brilliant song. I mean, it wasn't... it was, at first I thought it was kind of but the more I listened to it, the more I grew to love it. It's one of those songs that is just sort of, you just grow to appreciate. Where there was nothing on Roger Waters' last album, I kind of have stuck with me. It's just like, on Is This the Life We Really Want? I'm like, sheesh, I'm beginning to not like minimalistic music. At least, Yes I Have Ghosts has resemblance of music, although it's acoustic guitars and, harps and stuff. But at least it's musical based, and amazing guitar playing at the very end, and the fiddle from John McCusker at the end. Amazing. And the CD ends with the original Barn Jam version of the title track, which features Gilmour, Wright, Pratt, and DeStanislaw jamming for 14 minutes. And you kind of get vibes of Dogs from Animals, Pigs, 3 different ones. I mean, without David and Rick, the Pink Floyd sound would not have happened, because everyone's like pointing to Roger Waters. Oh, he was Pink Floyd. I'm like, no, they were all working together perfectly as a band. And it's just one of the strangest things that, everyone's like, oh, Roger was Pink Floyd. Roger was... No, I'm like, no, he wasn't. It was just... when they worked together as a band, they were unstoppable. It's just sadly that Roger's ego and out of control insanity is just gone completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And the instrumental's great. And anything else to add to it? Not much. But brilliant instrumental and awesome way to end the CD. Also on the Blu-ray version of the Luck and Strange album is 2 other bonus tracks. One is an orchestral version of A Single Spark, and the other is a orchestral version of Scattered. And then, of course, coming at the end of September will be a super deluxe edition of Luck and Strange, which will bring, depending on which format you want, either 2 CDs or in Blu-ray, or 2 LPs in Blu-ray. So and originally most people were not going to be buying the deluxe edition, but now, thankfully, in my case, I'm getting it as a Christmas present, spoiler, because it brings all those aforementioned Yes I Have Ghosts. On the second disc, it'll be Yes I Have Ghosts, the Luck and Strange Barn Jam, a single spark demo, which is not on the Blu-ray edition, then the orchestral version of a single spark you're going to get, and the orchestral version of Scattered, plus a hardcover book with photos taken by Polly Sampson. The album cover designed and photographed by Anton Corbijn, who's famous for his photo of U2 on the front cover of the Joshua Tree album, and he directed many videos for them, videos for Metallica, and the artwork was overseen by Steve Nee, who did the artwork on many of Gilmour's last few albums, and Aubrey Powell of Hypnosis. Continuing in the Hypnosis vein of artwork. And this new album is just hard to put into words, but a brilliant album, great new album, and I suggest you check it out. And those of you who are going to see the tour, you're going to be in for a treat, because not only is he going to play the new album, but songs off of his two previous albums, On an Island and Rattle That Lock. Songs from 1970 up to 94 in the Pink Floyd catalog, including, spoilers. I don't mean to give out spoilers, but I do know he's doing Time, Breathe, Reprise, Wish You Were Here, Comfortably Numb. I think High Hopes, What Do You Want From Me? And he's doing a series of shows in Rome, which he's doing about 6 shows in Rome at the Circus Massimo, which Genesis filmed their When in Rome concert film in 2007. And he's doing a series of shows at the Royal Albert Hall in London, October 9th through the 15th. Then a show at Los Angeles' Intuit Dome on the 25th of October. 3 shows at the Hollywood Bowl, October 29th, 30th, and 31st, which is Halloween. And then a residency at New York's Madison Square Garden with 5 shows, November 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th, and 10th. And the band for the tour? Well, you got David on guitars and vocals, Guy Pratt on bass guitar, Adam Betts on drums, Greg Fillinganes and Rob Gentry on keyboards, Ben Worsley on guitar, Louise Marshall on backing vocals, and the Webb Sisters on backing vocals. And of course, other musicians could be added to the lineup and of course are subject to change. And I think Greg Fillinganes is a phenomenal musician, and Ben Worsley has already won me over as a guitarist. And there's some shows where Romany's going to be singing with David in the band. And this is not just a one-off album that he's going to disappear for another 9 years, because he's already made plans to make another album as soon as this touring cycle finishes. But could there be a live album concert film like the previous tours or series of shows? We'll keep you posted. But for now, if you don't have Luck and Strange, I urge you to check it out. Definitely. I mean, it's not heavy hit. It's not going to hit you right on first listen like for some people On an Island did. For other people, the first album did. About Face did. Or even Rattle That Lock. It's a grower, but with each listen it gets better and better and better. And yeah, I'm on record for saying this. David Gilmour has yet to disappoint me with a solo album. So far he's been 5 for 5. Hard to believe I said that. All 5 solo albums he's done have been top notch. Some I like more than others, but this album, I just love it. The more I listen to it, the more I dig it. And that, my friends, is my look at the new David Gilmour album. The review, sorry if it's a lengthy one, but I wanted to cover all the bases. And my pick of the moment will be the new Gilmour album. I urge you to check that out. Let's just hope it does well on the album charts. Even if it's debuts as a number 1 rock album, I'll be satisfied, because the Billboard 200's monopolized by that Jezebel Swift, who may be moving like a rabbit at rabbit speed, but you know what happens to rabbits, folks? They wind up losing to either elephants or even get cheated by grotesque looking potato meets hog meets spider creatures. Oh my goodness. That's all I got to say. And I'm also going to recommend an album by a certain band called Simple Minds. The album Once Upon a Time, which had tracks like the title track, All the Things She Said, Alive and Kicking, and of course Sanctify Yourself. For those of you who are like, did you say Simple Minds? I'm like, yeah. The album that was their most popular, and also the album which had the best rhythm section of John Giblin on bass, may he lay in peace, and Mel Gaynor on the drums. He's a beast behind that drum kit. I don't know why he's not in the band anymore, but he helped make Simple Minds a better band than they were, and they should have had more success. I think they kind of strayed away from the formula that made Once Upon a Time great. With later albums, that's why they kind of lost their appeal here in the States, but I urge you to check out Once Upon a Time by Simple Minds. So before I go, here's some podcasts and YouTube channels I want you to give your love to, and I will be right back to say a final word. Check out The Rockin' Tours with Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp, both from Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets. Also check out Eddie Trunk's podcast. How can anyone not like Eddie Trunk? It's humanly impossible. And of course the Chris Jericho podcast, Y2J for the Win. And the following YouTube channels: Michael Borland's Classic Rock channels on YouTube, John Bowden's various Classic Rock YouTube channels. He's awesome. Freeform Rock podcast with my buddy Mark Alden Taylor. That's recommended as well. The Villain Cult podcast with Roy Dam, Eric Lawton, and Mike Lockhart. How can anyone not like those guys? Classic Rock Review. That's recommended. The Professor of Rock. Darren Locke, he's recommended. He's funny. He's deadpan British humor, but God bless him. Melinda Murphy's channel's recommended. Brandon Snyder, great YouTuber. Pete Pardo, Sea of Tranquility. The Man, the Myth, the Legend. And my new favorite, JCM Led Zeppelin Stories. Jose is the king of Led Zeppelin, and the man who's got more copies of In Through the Outdoor than any other human being I know in my life. He has about 50 some odd copies of it. And his YouTube channels and his deep dives into Zeppelin things, awesome, awesome, awesome. And if you're not a Zeppelin fan, check out his channel. You'll be very surprised, guaranteed. So before I go, here's some recommendations for other podcasts and so forth and so on. I want you fans to give your love to, and to quote General MacArthur, I shall return.
Hi, this is Mark Alden Taylor from the Freeform Rock Podcast, where we rock and roll all night and party every day. Come check us out on iTunes and Podbean. Thank you very much.
Hey everybody, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Chris.
And we're from the Decibel Geek Podcast. And if you love this...
then you'll love us.
That's right. Brand new episode every single Monday. You can find us on iTunes and at decibelgeek.com. And the best thing is, it's rock and roll and it's always free.
Carey reporting for duty. That's right. After rocking the airwaves in Boston for 22 years on WAAF, welcome to the Mistress Carey podcast. And if you love rock, this weekly podcast is for you. I'll introduce you to new bands that I think you are going to love and keep you in touch with the bands that are already your favorites. I'll take you backstage and expose you to the people behind the rock. Plus, we'll talk about everything else that we know and love, like motorcycles, tattoos, skydiving, hot rods, food, booze, and so much more. And let's not forget all of the branches of our military, our veterans, and first responders. Everything you know and loved about the Mistress Carey show, but now I'm unfiltered and uncensored. Fuck yeah! And if you never heard me before, well, welcome to the party. Subscribe now so you don't miss Mistress Carey Podcast.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Brain damage with Pink Floyd.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
Pink Floyd radio show.
Use only as directed.
There is no downside in the moon, really. Matter of fact, it's all
Your controls are set to the Random Precision Radio Network. This is Freudian Slip, an hour of Pink Floyd. I'm Craig Bailey. Find us online at freudianslip.com. Write to us at pink at freudianslip.com. Freudian Slip is a Random Precision production.
You're listening to Nights with Alice Cooper. I think my Speedo is starting to cut off the flow of oxygen to my head. And that's why I got so temperamental with anyone who has the impertinence to question his wisdom. And hello, I popped his inner courier.
Hi, and welcome to In the Studio. Redbeard here with the stories behind history's greatest rock and roll albums. Follow In the Studio on Facebook, at Redbeard Rocks on Twitter, and online at inthestudio.net.
Well, my fellow rock and roll fans, the TJR's Classic Rock Corner has got to come to a close. But before I go, I want to say thank you all for listening. There won't be another 3 or 4 month lapse in between episodes. I apologize, but life came in the way. But I won't be gone for long, because I will be back sooner than later with more episodes, which is always a good thing. You know why? Because I want to make up for lost time. And better to make up for lost time than not make up time at all. That's all I got to say. And coming next week will be the Metallica Ride the Lightning episode, finally. And then 2 Led Zeppelin episodes back to back. Yeah, you're like, how could he do 2 Led Zeppelin episodes back to back? Well, I'm doing it. One's going to be on the first album, 1 week, and then the next will be In Through the Outdoor. Yeah, you heard it here, folks. I'm doing 2 Led Zeppelin episodes in a row. As a little plug for my buddy, JCM, Led Zeppelin Stories, his channel, For the Win. And there's going to be more episodes, new and old but new, various different ways. And how I didn't say many profanities in this episode is a miracle. I mean, shit, I'm getting better at it. I mean, it's hard to not curse, but I finally did it. So on this episode, this is TJR, aka Terrence Reardon, saying thank you all for listening, which I'm glad you do. Thanks for making the show top 10, by the way, on BuzzFeed. I love you all for that. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning on in. And as always, thank you. Good night, everybody. God bless you. TJR's Classic Rock Corner was written, produced, edited, so forth and so on by yours truly, the Classic Rock Brainiac, Terrence Reardon. The intro music and the outro music is done by the one and only Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. Copyright 2024 TJR Rock Sponge Incorporated. All rights reserved. Once again, I thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for listening. Good night. God bless you.